Hello and welcome to Jeffery Reviews Records, specific records, just a whole video on one record, live from a 1960s, maybe 1970s style shower bathtub, yes. And speaking of bathtub, the jazz equivalent of bathtub gin. Chet Baker, Albert's House. Now, I believe I bought this some time ago at a Princeton Record Exchange, which happens to be my go-to place for jazz records. I'm not sure how long I've had it. It's a pretty decent copy of the album, as far as I can tell, though I have not checked for myself. It is an original, though I do not know. It came out in 1969, and it is Chet Baker's, for those of you familiar with the film, why am I forgetting the name of the film? Born to be Blue, that came out a few years ago, about Chet Baker, and how that centered around the 1966, though I think some people say 67, beating he took where he lost several teeth and lost the ability to play trumpet for a good while. This is his first album post that, and it's maybe his worst. Conventional wisdom says it's his worst album. There's some notes on the back that I'll read off that might shed some light. Chet himself views this collection as essentially a matter of delivering the composer's message, and only secondly of making a jazz statement. Clearly a wise placement of emphasis, since the listener must first be introduced to a new melody before he can appreciate alterations from the original line. Now, in such a way that statement deals with the fact that Chet's playing on the album is rather subpar. He can barely get out of the lower registers. He barely alters from the themes. And it sort of is in a gray territory of if he was doing that because he couldn't play, or if he was doing that because he just wanted to present the music. Now, the music on the album is what all music refers to it in its like one paragraph review of the album as being 12 forgettable, or I think 11 forgettable Steve Allen numbers, and all of the tracks are, except for one, which is written by J. Fitch and F. Landsman, written by Steve Allen. Although two tracks written by Steve Allen were also written with F. Landsman as well. Steve Allen booked the session, apparently. Anyway, so let's just dive right in, now that, just to continue talking about, like, the personnel. You have Frank Capp on drums, Jim Hugbart on bass, Barry Kessel on guitar, and next to Chet Baker, the most important person in shaping the characteristic sound of the album is a fellow by the name of Paul Smith. Now, Paul Smith died in, I think it was 2015, maybe 13, at the age of 91, and had a very, very, very long and respected career in jazz, playing on many Ella Fitzgerald albums, just to name a few. A fantastic piano player. However, for some reason on this album, he played one of the shittiest pianos known to man, and it has some of the just amazingly bad playing. Not the playing just sounds bad, but it's clearly good playing. It sounds like a very shitty computer synthesizer in parts. The organ sounds very weird and cheap. all the piano, keyboard, organ sounds on the album are awful, but lend to this very distinctive quality. Um, I'm not quite sure. I would take a guess and say Baker plays the flugelhorn on here. Primarily, I'm not even sure if he does play the trumpet, though I cannot particularly tell. It's a record I've been fascinated with just because it has this almost futuristic sound. There's a lot of the instrumentals on the album. Well, they're all considering it's Chet Baker, the fact that he doesn't sing at all, even with no teeth or dentures, and a very painful experience to speak at the time. It is still somewhat surprising that he doesn't really sing on any of the tracks because he was very prone to do so, but there's a certain quality to some of the playing that I feel could be used as the common, you would say, beats, whatever the fuck a beat is. There's a lot of like really shitty playing on here that sounds like you could make like a really shitty hip hop sound, a rap song sound like really good. Like it, I don't know. I feel like this album hasn't been tapped for samples, but it could be used as such, and it'd be like, wow, it was under our nose the entire time. But as a record itself, it's a pretty weak album. Certainly, I do go back to it a lot, and there are albums that I really like that I don't go back to as much as Albert House. Public Image Limited's second album is one of my favorite records of all time, and I don't go back to that album nearly as much as I go back to Chet Baker's Albert House. And in a weird way, there's a lot of music that I avoid going back to as opposed to this because it's just sort of, I just consistently pick up new things from listening to this album that I didn't quite pick up. Sort of the failures, seeing failures in retrospect is almost as interesting as seeing giant accomplishments. Because in a lot of ways, this could have been a masterpiece. But it wasn't, and it very clearly isn't. And that's really all I have to say about that. And yeah, I don't exactly know why I made this video other than to talk about the oddity that's Albert's House. Reviews mention, at least the all music one, which isn't the only review I read for this album in preparation, just to get an idea of what I'm going to explain later why I sometimes read reviews before I do a video. It has more to do with seeing if there's really any interest in the album, and in this case there really wasn't any. There's barely any reviews. There's some like really hyped up fan reviews on Amazon that are like, it's the best album ever. What the fuck are all of you talking about? It's amazing. And it's not that it's a bad album by any stretch. Sorry, let me back up. It's not that it's the worst album ever made. It is, of course, not Billy Joel's Attila. But it's not the greatest thing ever. And the one review, the All Music review, which is only like 3 sentences long, it's really insulting. It ends with, I don't know why it keeps getting reissued, and I don't exactly know what that person's talking about because I really can't find this album or any of the songs on it anywhere else except for Amazon has like used copies for like, yeah, buy a used copy of this shitty album for $20. I'll send it to you in a month. Yeah. Like that, you maybe will run into it at a record store, Probably not. It's actually, in its rarity, become a sought after item, somewhat relatively, but it really shouldn't be. It's not. If you go into it thinking it's going to be so bad it's good, don't buy it because it's not that bad. It's painfully, if you honestly go into it as a Chet Baker fan, it is a painful listening experience. And because Chet Baker really was one of the greatest jazz trumpet players around, his work with the Jerry Mulligan Trio, and then, at least in my mind, the work towards the end of his life, in the last like maybe 5 years or something of his life, like shipbuilding, just really any of his playing over in Europe in like the 80s is quite amazing stuff. But this is dog shit. And yeah, it's a fascinating, I keep going back to it to try and see what's in the turd, to see if I can just get it clearer and clearer. But the only thing that ever happens is you're just zooming in on a piece of shit. And while for some people, that might be interesting to see exactly what went wrong, it is somewhat demoralizing to see such a great musician play so terribly. And now for the 12th minute of endless rambling, I'm going to end the video. Thank you for watching. Stop watching maybe a minute into this and then never watch a video mine again. Dislike the video, don't subscribe. Oh, for the love of God, just, leave. And yeah, now that we're 12 minutes in, I think I'm gonna probably end the video. This video was brought to you by Australian 3-Minute Miracle Hair Reconstructor / Conditioner. Contains no wax. Our original salon formula. And I do mean every word of that, my friend. Have a good day.